welcome to another episode of ThinkerThemer. I'm Amy and this is my wonderful fiance Maggie, and together we are ThinkerThemer. I'm the thinker, Maggie's the themer. If you're new to our channel, it's because I love all things mechanics and Maggie is all about the story. And from those two perspectives, we look at board games. Now today it's exciting because we're looking at quite a big box game, which was a bit unexpected, but we're looking at the heritage box for It's a Wonderful World by Frédéric Guérard. Sorry if I got that wrong. And the publishing company is Ori Games, and how would you say that in French?
Boîte de Jeu.
De Jeu. I don't know, it sounds nice.
Which is like the something of game. I think
okay.
Yeah, I was even going to try and say I speak a little bit of French, but even that I couldn't say.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Do you? Anyway, so It's a Wonderful World. I backed this not in the first, believe it was a Kickstarter before. I got on board a bit late with this. This is the latest Kickstarter campaign. I believe the Heritage Box came out in 2019. It was published, but we're just getting our hands on it now. I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about this edition before we get into the review.
It's a lot.
If you have a look at this box, it is huge. I want to show you the side of the box there because it is really, really deep, takes up quite a lot of shelf space. And inside, they do give you this lovely little note about what is everything in this box, because when you open it, it's just like, what am I looking at?
Yeah, where do I start?
But you can see it's interesting in the design of the way they've stored everything, because everything is in cardboard boxes. All of the resources are in boxes. The I guess the currency or the VP. The campaign is then set out. So there's two different campaigns in this box. There is the War or Peace one, which we've played through completely. And then there is the Decadent, what's the other one? The Decadence and Leisure and Decadence.
Which I'm really looking
Which is this purple one. And so there are
Those are probably two of my favorite things.
Leisure and Decadence. They are two great things. So there are different secret boxes that you will unlock along the way in those campaigns. And then there's plenty of space in each of these boxes to store all of the things that you are unlocking, plus expansions. We do also have the expansion from the latest Kickstarter. I think I just went out of frame. This is the latest Corruption and Ascension. Obviously, this is the Kickstarter edition, but we'll talk about that towards the end as well. So that was a big preamble to get into this game. Let's get this huge box out of the way.
One of the most satisfying sort of organizer within a game box that I have ever experienced.
It is. I don't know if it needed to be quite so big though. Like everything is just...
The box itself is quite big,
It's
but
big.
it is like, there doesn't seem to be a lot of wasted space in it. And it's just so satisfying. Everything is just like...
There is a place for everything,
like
which is
Tetris,
nice.
just like beautifully fit together and
So why don't you tell us about the theme?
All right, so in It's a Wonderful World, we are all building our own empire or nation, and what we're really trying to do is try and build it faster, better than anyone else. The way we're going to do that is we're going to be making sure that obviously we need a variety of things like industry and factories and our military, science, our finance or the economic sort of infrastructure. And then the other areas, the explorations, which is kind of like, I always feel like it's a sort of more like, ooh, what's going to happen? And like that area tends to be like almost like adventure type cards. So that's essentially it. We're going to be using all those things to try and
build up our civilizations. Yeah, it is a civ builder. And it's mostly, it's predominantly card based. I think that's the feeling about the box is, for me, that the actual base game, which you can see here, is not that big. So, and I know that the base game box wouldn't be that big. Most of that is campaign related, all of those things, and a bit and storage, of course. But the actual base game is quite small. This is there won't be any spoilers in here, so don't be afraid to continue watching, because the only things you'll see are some of the components that came with the expansion, but nothing to do with the campaign. So in the expansion, you do get these little boxes that actually hold these, and one additional little cup to hold the red ones, because originally...
The red ones, the crystallium.
the red ones.
The red ones.
That was such a thinker way of calling it. Whatever. The way that this game works is that you are drafting cards. So in a game, everyone gets given 7 cards to begin with, and you are drafting out of your hand. In a 2-player game, you've got 10, just to give you a bit more variety, but you'll still be drafting 7 from that 10. And so basically, Maggie and I would sit here and look at the cards that we've been dealt, and then we would choose to keep one of them and then swap hands. And you just keep doing that, and you do that at the start of every round. So there's 4 rounds to this game. You'll see that I love this like turn tracker, because in a larger multiplayer game, you would be turning this little marker to show which direction the draft goes. So it alternates every draft just to mix things up. And also
every round, not every draft,
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Well, every draft, which is every round.
Draft phase, yes.
Yeah. So when you're passing the cards around, it's in a different direction. But when you're doing that, you're just basically choosing one of the cards from the hand, placing it down in front of you into this bottom space, which is like I'm yet to decide what I'm doing with this card, or at least you're signaling to everyone else that you may keep that card, or you may trash that card, or recycle that card. Because if you recycle that card, this is a great use, multi-use cards. Each card has a cost associated with it to build it. It gives you a benefit of some type when you do that. I'll get into that in a moment. But you can also recycle that card to get the resource that's shown on the right-hand side. So cards can be used as buildings in and of themselves, or to help you build other buildings by recycling them and getting the resource. The main mechanic in this game is like set collection and also tableau building, because what you're doing is you start with your Civ card, which gives you, so I'm the Federation of Asia, which gives me some resources that I'm starting with, and then an end game condition if you're playing with this beginner kind of side of the board, of the card, which is going to give me 2 victory points for every building that I have of this type. So it's a little bit of set collection, but it's also creating this little engine or tableau, because as you build new cards, they are going to be placed on top of your set. And you can see that some of them add additional resources that get generated during the resource generation phase of the game. And what I love about the mechanic here is that when we are going through the steps, so in a round, we draft our 7 cards, we decide whether we want to build them or recycle them for resources. And then what happens is we go through each of the resources one by one, and we look at, so we start with this gray resource. I don't know if it has a technical name, but we're going to call it gray.
It's meant to be manufacturing. Okay. So it's like factories and yeah.
Okay. So the gray resource, we would tally up how many we have in our little engine here. So you can see that I currently have 2, so I would collect 2 of that resource, whereas Maggie has 3. So Maggie would get 3 of that resource, but she also wins the majority in that round. So every time we go through a resource, the person with the majority gets to have a victory point bonus by way of these little tokens here, which is actually really interesting because it gives you another reason to have the majority in a particular resource. Usually it's a bit of just a side bonus, but you can also work it to your advantage. The really interesting thing that I love about this game is that you do each resource one at a time. And if I was to collect this resource, for example, it would help me finish this card. And once I finish this card, I put all of the resources back and it goes into my tableau. And now, even though I've already produced this gray, it will help me next round. But now I've got this additional blue in my tableau. And because we're going one at a time, in this round, I'm still going to be able to leverage the fact that I achieved that blue. So there's a real element of timing, and you're thinking through, well, which card should I build next? Because is that going to give me resources this round instead of waiting next round? Super clever. Yeah. I love that. And so you move through and you do each one at a time. There are these wild resources as well. Every time you collect 5 that you can't use, they kind of get placed onto your card and you get this bonus wild. But the main aim of the game is really to collect. There are cards that are, of course, going to help your engine, give you more resources. And then there are cards with end game bonuses, which want you to collect certain types of cards, have the most in using, these different tokens. And really, just at the end of the game, you're summing up all of the points that are in your tableau, and the person with the most victory points wins.
Yeah, which is a tricky thing because not all cards have victory points, and sometimes it's very heavily some of the types of cards that will more likely have the points. So I have gotten myself stuck at times where it's like, oh, I've built this beautiful tableau that is an incredible engine, and I have no points. This is the problem. But anyways, let me talk about thematic integration. So you know, it's for the type of game that it is. There's nice elements of thematic integration. You are building your civilization. There is correlation between the type of building that you're building and then the type of resource that they're producing. All the cards have a name. So every card that you're building represents a particular thing. So this is like a mega drill, an airborne laboratory, and obviously makes sense the types of resources that you get for recycling them as well as the type of resources that you get for building them.
But you could reskin it.
You could reskin it.
And you wouldn't be losing much in the gameplay.
No, but I don't feel like it doesn't. Like, I do feel like it adds to the sense of like, oh, I'm adding up to all these different areas. It could be reskinned, but I feel like they've done a good job. It's not going to be the most immersive experience. Sometimes I'm just going to be thinking about, I need my greens, I need my, my blues and my, or I need to get a red, because some cards actually do ask for that wild crystallium. So yeah, I think they've done a pretty nice job, and obviously with the campaign, there's a lot more story.
Yeah, I thought we should talk about the campaign.
Yep.
So the campaign is set over a number of games. I think there was 5 different games, 6 different games, but there's forks in the path that take you to some certain envelopes over others. And of course we won't spoil anything, but it adds like one element each game that you kind of, whether that's in the form of cards or something else that you need to consider, or a slightly different action that you can take. It doesn't add too much to the game, and that's something actually I really appreciated about it. There's nothing worse than getting a campaign game and just feeling that sense of dread of like how many extra rules are going to, like kind of interrupt the game. So it's like, oh, now I've got to learn this and before we play the next campaign. Whereas this was just like one thing. Okay, I've got it. Yeah. Let's go again. And like, it has been a long time since Maggie and I found a game where we just played it back to back, probably 10 times. And as soon as we finished it, we started it again. Yeah. And I feel like I kind of, the campaign I really enjoyed because it was just adding one small thing, and it wasn't changing the kind of core of the game, which I really like. And so that made me kind of follow along with the story. It wasn't forking too many different directions, but I think it's a lot of fun. I should also note that of course, once you open the envelope, it's open and you can't really reseal it, but you can put all of the campaign components back into those envelopes. So if you were to give the game to a friend, they could play out that entire campaign again, and so there's no destruction of things along the way. And that's really nice too, because I think we would introduce this game to some of our friends who I know would love it, but then at least, like, if they want to, we could play the campaign again with more players, and I would be happy to play it again, because there's nothing like, there's no secrets to it.
No,
it's more
there's no advantage that you would have by knowing what happens in the story.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we're really looking forward to playing the second campaign. Really excited about that. Yeah. I also want to talk about like what it feels like to play. How do you feel playing this?
I really love it. It's one of those games where, I love resources. I love fiddly things, which actually I'm surprised because you often don't like fiddly things. And this is all about picking up, putting down, and then, I've built it. So then immediately, as soon as I pick them up, the resources are going back into the supply. But I really enjoy that, at the best of times. The components are, they're good thick cardboard. Plastic cubes, are fine. They do the job. I love the sense of when you get to the 3rd and 4th rounds, and you have, you've created this amazing engine, and you're producing so much, and you're like, oh yes,
it's really satisfying. Yeah.
But then at the same time, because it's only 4 rounds, often you're like, I have no point.
I've overcommitted. I've got all these things to build. I've overcommitted.
So the stress of like, I need to convert things. I need to optimize things like now. From a take that point of view, there's not really.
Okay, I want to touch on that
there
because
is a little bit of potential hate draft.
Maggie is a hate drafter in this game. Far more often than
It's self-defense, you guys.
Yeah, far more often than I was. So Maggie was looking at what I was building and like looking at my tableau and destroying recycling
In my
cards.
defense, like I played this game probably like 5 or 6 times solo. I learned it tried to kind of learn it two-handed before we played it together. And then every single time we played this together, you won.
Yeah, and that brings me to what I like about this game.
I had to, not hate draft, but defensive
She was
draft.
hate drafting, but I think that makes you take your eye off the ball, actually, from your own tableau. I think it's actually counterproductive. But I do want to talk about what I like about this game, because you're right, like on the surface level, reading it, it doesn't seem like my type of game for 2 reasons. One, the fiddliness of the resources, although I don't find it so bad. It's just like filling out the cards and putting them back. It's not like there's no exchanging of resources, really. It's not like, one of these equals 2 of these. The
only exchange is the 5 for 5 of any kind for a wild.
The only thing that I was questionable about as well is like the multiplayer solitaire nature of this. But I think that what disrupts that is that draft process, because at the start of the round, you're kind of getting to choose new cards. And that's a little bit interactive, because I'm like hoping, I'm going to leave this in the deck and I just hope Maggie doesn't take it. And then when it comes back, I'm like, whew,
it's like,
I really needed that. I really needed that.
No, they took it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I will do that whole thing of like just waiting for the reaction.
Yeah, you do. You're like, I got it.
Yeah, I got it. I saw it. I clocked it.
But I really don't like, normally I don't like multiplayer solitaire. In this game, I actually feel like there is a really strong sense of competing with yourself, competing with the puzzle, because it's an efficiency puzzle that I'm constantly calculating in my head. Well, next round I'm going to get 3 blues and I need 4 blues, so I need to recycle one and get an extra blue. So there's like a lot of maths that's going on in my head to work out whether I can build everything and how efficiently I can do that. And I really, really love that puzzle. And I really enjoy it, and I think that a lot of people will, because it's really satisfying to complete cards, add them to your tableau, and then instantly get that benefit of like next round getting more stuff. And it's just like, it's super fun. And I'm surprised and delighted by this game. I think it will stay in our collection for a long time.
I haven't talked about the solo mode. So obviously I've played it a lot in solo mode. I enjoy the solo. The only thing that changes obviously is that you're not drafting with somebody else. You're just creating these draft pools where you're going to be kind of doing your draft from. It does have an ability where if there's nothing in there that you like, you can kind of exchange 2 to get an extra, I think it's like get an extra 4 or 5 and then not 5 and then return 4, something like that. That gives you more opportunity to kind of access the deck a little bit further. At the end of the day, you are just competing against yourself. Well, and you're trying to beat a particular score. So if you get, I believe from memory, like less than 60, which is usually where I sat, it's like you're a rookie. It's super tough. I found it really difficult. I wonder, because all the solo playing that I did was before we played together.
Yeah.
I wonder if now that I've played a lot of it and now
that you've had a true challenge.
Now that I've had a real life competitor, to see if it will actually change, if I've actually now gotten better at understanding the dynamics of it all. They do have different scenarios, or like they call them campaigns, but it's more of a, you start with like these predetermined buildings that have to be built by the end, and then there's a ranking of score based on the score that you get for that scenario. Then again, you've done gold, silver, bronze, sort of thing. It plays really well because obviously it is a very relatively solitaire from an engine building point of view.
Yes. Sorry, you just made me think. So the Corruption and Ascension box, this is the expansion. It comes with another box that goes into that big box, so you can store everything. Oops, made a mess in here. But these cards, it essentially is adding another deck of cards and some other little empires. These are not spoilers.
No, the No? Okay.
No, these are not spoilers. These are just additional, I guess, the factions
The starting
cards that you can use. I've taken out all the spoilers out of here because all that the spoiler is actually just a secret box that goes into the other big box. There are a couple of Kickstarter bonuses, nothing that you couldn't live without. They gave you some more componentry, as I mentioned. They gave you a nice bigger score board.
Dry erase.
Yeah, dry erase, which is really helpful because there's a bit of calculating that has to go on, and this little one just wasn't doing it. Like I was constantly summing on a different sheet of paper. And so, yeah, it basically makes things a little bit harder. But what made me think about this is that there is an additional solo mode scenarios that come in here that I believe are probably a bit more complex. You don't need this expansion, but it is like a nice to have for the extra componentry. And the cards, we have played a game with the additional cards in that they're harder. They start your engine faster because they have more resources associated with them. There's also cards that have an exceptional number of victory points, but they're much harder to build. But when you see one, you're like, this is worth 25 victory points if I can do it. And I guess it gives you a challenge once you're used to the base game. But in and of itself, even if you're looking at the base game of this game, and it can be picked up for like quite cheaply. Like I paid quite a lot for the Heritage box, I remember, but then I've seen it in retail for like it's quite cheap to pick up. It is fabulous. The expansion
easy to teach too. Like it's very easy to teach and learn.
Definitely. It would take 5 minutes to teach someone this, 10 minutes, super easy to get people into it. The expansion box also adds a 6th and 7th player. So the original game was 1 to 5. It's adding more players into it, and I imagine that even at that player count, because everyone's doing their thing at the same time, it's not going to add much time to it. We've only played this game at 2. Highly recommended as a campaign experience for 2 players. I think this is just a really great game, especially during lockdown at the moment with people staying at home. If it's just you and your partner, or even you and your kids, this is like a really nice, simple engine building game. And I just love it. I can't recommend it enough. I think it's great.
It's a great, nice, it feels compact. It feels really quick as well. Like it doesn't feel like it takes that long, which is why it's very easy to play it again and again and again and again.
Anyway, staying in our collection, you should check it out if you can. If you are watching this and you enjoyed this review, please hit like. It does help us to understand what kind of content people are enjoying the most. Thank you to everyone for all of your support over the last few weeks. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. Hit the notification bell and you'll hear from us when we've got new reviews. I know we've been a little bit behind on our actual game reviews, but we're going to catch up quickly. There's a large pile, so stay tuned and talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Bye.